Oosh! Hey ninjas, thanks for tuning in. Joey Moss with Bad Boy Gaming, and oh my busted. This card is absolutely broken. And I'm going to show you like several, maybe 10 different ways you can use and abuse this new card. Forget every other spoiler you heard of. Forget every other spoiler you saw. From Commander, from IKORIA, it doesn't matter. This one card is just ridiculous, and it's going to shape a lot of decks and just make things absolutely busted. We're going to get to it in a bit, but first we're going to go over a few Commander cards, some new mythics, that were released or spoiled, and also IKORIA. So let's get into that, but oh man, you're going to want to see this stuff. This is nutty. All right, so first off, we got Parcells Beast. I threw up its little alternate version here. Pretty cool. Now, the more I see these kind of art, I kind of am taking more. I'm enjoying it more, Anyway, this is a 4-drop. It's got the mutate. And for one, you tap, look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card, you may put it on the battlefield. It's not bad. If you don't put the card onto the battlefield, put it into your hand. That's a great way, I guess, to get some card draw. But, I mean, this thing is a 4-drop. If it was a 3-drop, absolutely, positively, I would play it. Then here are some new spoilers. Not news, they're not new. But this is from Commander. You're getting the Locust God reprint and Nissa Steward of Elements reprint. I'm not sure that these cards need a reprint, but I guess for the set that they're going to be in, it makes absolute sense. Absolute sense. I can talk today, huh? So Locust God, the 6-drop, we already know about it. Legendary Creature God, Legendary Planeswalker Nissa. Glad to have them back. This had a lot of people like using this as their commander. I've seen quite a few builds using it, and she's not bad either. She's nothing spenduvious spectacular, but she's all right. All right, then we got Hornbash Mentor and Magma Charger. So the Hornbash Mentor, what does it do? It's 3-drop, Human Warrior. When Hornbash Mentor enters the battlefield, put a trample counter on target non-human creature you control. That's right. Just put a trample counter on target creature. I like again, I'll say it again. I like that there are now counters that have something like flying. Put a flying counter on this. Put a trample counter on this. Put a first strike counter on this. Put a FU counter on this. I'm going to win the game, That's what I like to see. A 3-drop, for 3, tap it, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control with trample. That's pretty good, and there's even some smaller creatures too, like some I think some 2-drops, 3-drops that have that would want this. Even a Pelt Collector would want a 1-drop Pelt Collector would want something like this. I don't know if you really want to pay 3, but if you're going nothing but trample, this would be a kind of a cool card to have in a build like that, because it just perks from everything with that. Magma Charger is a 4-drop. When Magma Charger, it's a creature dinosaur, by the way. Whenever Magma Charger attacks, I like this card too. If it doesn't have first strike, put a first strike counter on it. So now you got a 3/3 of first strike. Now it's 4. Yeah, it's kind of steep. There are some other. Actually, there's not a whole lot of first strike creatures right now in the meta. I mean, there's a few, but not a whole lot. Maybe with the new set, I think we're going to keep seeing more and more first strikers. It's interesting because I tried building a first strike deck the other day, just based around just first strike, and there wasn't really a whole lot I could do with it. Like you're kind of limited to how many cards actually have first strike written on them, and not just an instant giving it first strike or something like that, or a planeswalker giving it all your creatures first strike or something. But nonetheless, I tried. It failed anyway. So when Magma Charger attacks, if it has first strike, it gains double strike until end of turn. So if you can swing with this thing at least once, the following time you swing, if you keep it on the battlefield, of course, also, now you have a double striker on the battlefield, and then also just perk this thing up. Give it some +1/+1 counters. There's counters galore everywhere. Wait till you see this card. And yeah, not bad. But this is more for like limited and stuff. It's probably not going to see a whole lot of competitive play. But we never know. I mean, creatures are crazy right now. We have Fight as 1 and Heartless Act. Fight as 1 is a 1-drop. Choose one or both. Target human creature you control. Gets +1/+1 and gains indestructible until end of turn. So it does have to be a human creature. But getting +1/+1 and indestructible is pretty good. Or both. Target non-human creature you control gets +1/+1 and gains indestructible until end of turn. So you can give, for just 1, you can give 2 creatures, if I'm not mistaken here, indestructible and +1/+1. That's a lot of power in one card. Fight as one is very, very powerful. That do not underestimate the power of indestructible. It can't be destroyed. The only thing you could do about this is exile it or maybe tap the card or something, you know. The only thing that could make it better if they had hexproof and indestructible. That would just be bonkers. But fight as one, it seems like a very powerful card. I guarantee you that's going to see competitive play. Then we have Heartless Act, which is a 2-drop. Choose one. Destroy target creature with no counters on it. Man, counters oh plenty in this set. There are a lot of creatures that don't have counters. Now, if this card was around right now in the current meta, you know, before IKORIA, this would be an amazing card. A 2-drop, you just destroy any creature. Sweet, I'm going to use that because not a lot of creatures have counters on them right now. There are quite a few, but not a lot like we're about to see. And then remove up to 3 counters from target creature. That's pretty cool. And that's going to come in handy, as you're going to see. That could also just kill creatures too, you know. Pretty neat. All right, then we have 2 more reprints for the Commander 2020 decks. That's Nahiri, the Harbinger, and Jace, Architect of Thought. I always liked Nahiri. Just never... actually, Nahiri sees a lot of play. Yeah, Nahiri does see a lot of play. Now, Jace, on the other hand, this was kind of like a more crappy Jace for the longest time, and then it saw a decent amount of play, about a year ago, I think, and maybe still sees a bit of play now. But, yeah, Jace, it seems every Jace that's printed, no matter how crappy they can make a Jace, Jace is still good. That's kind of like a meme floating around about Jace. Let's get into what's cooking. All right, this is what we're all here for. This is the big kahuna, man. This is the Ozolith. It's a 1-drop. Legendary artifact. Wait till you hear this. Whatever creature you control leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on it, put those counters on the Ozolith. Okay, that's cool. However, at the beginning of combat on your turn, if the Ozolith has counters on it, you may move all counters from the Ozolith onto target creature. You're not sacrificing this. You're moving them all. How can we make this busted? Let me explain all the ways we can do that. Now, just in standard, this is something that a mass would really like when you're doing that, when you're moving counters around and whatnot. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life and you amass 1. Put a +1/+1 counter on an army. So when this army actually does die, it doesn't matter when it dies. You can just put a +1/+1 counter on another target creature. That's pretty cool. Dreadhorde Invasion would really like this. Then you also have Enter the God Eternals, where this could benefit. You know, the whole amass mechanic just in a whole would be really cool to run this. Very powerful. Amass 4, then it just, when that creature dies, whoopity-doo. You just swing on in on something, or just sacrifice it, whatever the case may be. Put those counters on something else that's more powerful. You know, now remember, it's got to be during that combat phase. At the beginning of combat on your turn. That's when this would apply, okay? And you move those counters. Okay. Very, very interesting. So then we also have Sarkhan the Masterless and Gideon Blackblade. This is where stuff gets stupid. Because the counters are moving along, these cards are leaving the battlefield. Sarkhan and Gideon Blackblade. They do leave the battlefield when they like kind of do their whole transform thing, and that's how you're gonna get all these trigs. Any planeswalkers running with Sarkhan are gonna be insane. So Gideon Blackblade would go over. Those counters end up leaving, and then you can put those counters on another creature when that happens. The synergy here is just insane. It is extremely powerful. And as you know, create a 4/4. No, that's not it. For +1, until end of turn, each planeswalker you control becomes a 4/4 red dragon creature and gains flying. So yeah, you can definitely play with these counters and get crazy with them. Because when this creature ends up leaving after that, then you know the trigger. There's so much. The triggers just stack up on this card, and then you move them to another card. Gideon Blackblade. A lot of people are really hype around running Gideon Blackblade with this new card. Then we have stuff like Hydroid Crisis. I mean, this is something that would really benefit something like Hydroid Crisis. Any Hydra really would benefit from this. Then you have Rolesk Apex Hybrid, which I'm still hoping this card can be busted. Wait till you see the absolute busted stuff we get into outside of standard. Apex Hybrid. When it enters the battlefield, put 2+1/+1 counters on another target creature. Cool. If that thing dies, you know what's going to happen. You know, those things stack up and everything. Also, when Roll S dies, proliferate. Then proliferate again. Very, very cool. What else do we have? Voracious Hydra and Simek Ascendancy. Simek Ascendancy. This is a win con, okay? At the beginning of your upkeep, if Simek Ascendancy has 20 or more growth counters on it, you win the game. We might actually be able to see with this new card, Simek Ascendancy actually start maybe being competitive somewhere. Maybe. It's a stretch, guys. I know. And then you have Voracious Hydra. Again, any Hydra, anything with +1/+1 counters on it can easily make a nightmare for your opponent. Imagine when Voracious Hydra dies. How many freaking +1/+1 or how many counters you have that you can distribute anywhere. Not only that, but it doesn't only work for +1/+1 counters. You know what else it works for? Any kind of counters, depending how it works. Whenever a creature you control, one more time, leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on it, put those counters on the Ozolith, okay? So if you have whatever creature you have that leaves, you can splash you can take all those creatures from Ozolith and put it on something like Azur's, I can't even say this right, Elocutors, whatever. A card that really hasn't seen much play. A lot of people were hyped about it, but now is a really good reason to be hyped about this card. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a filibuster counter on Azur's Elocutors. Then if Azur's has 5 or more filibuster counters on it, you win the game. Talk about being busted, man. You keep this card out long enough, you just move those counters. If you have a Hydra, boom, the Hydra dies. Put it on Azur's Elocutors. Boom, you win. You know, I mean, not exactly in that exact fashion because it has to be at the beginning of combat on your turn. But you see what I'm saying? This is one card that the synergy here is just ridiculous. And then we have other kind of cards like Doubling Season, which would perk from this. So now you could quadruplicate tokens, essentially, with Doubling Season. Because an effect would create 1 or more tokens under your control. It creates twice that many of those tokens. If an effect would put, I'm sorry, here it is. If the effect would put 1 or more counters on a permanent you control, it puts twice that many of those counters on that permanent instead. That is nutty. This is just getting out of control. Scorpion God is another one. Whenever a creature with the -1/-1 counters as well work. Put a -1/-1 counter on their target creature. You end up killing that thing. Those counters leave. Boom. Come back. Get more onto your Ozolith. This is just so much crazy. What's another one? Harpatra. That other card, the 3-drop legendary. A lot of people like building around her with the poison counters and stuff or whatever. The -1/-1 counters. Another way to do some shenanigans. Then we also have Hardened Scales. This is so busted, man. This new card is just busted. And with something like Death's Presence over here, whenever a creature you control dies, put X +1/+1 counters on target creature you control, where X is the power of the creature that died. Something like that, in Commander with the card or Hardened Scales. There's so much you can do with this card. It is absolutely insane. Just one more look at it. The Ozolith. This is going to be. I'm assuming it's going to be an expensive card. This is your cream of the crop card you want to open when it comes to the rare slot, if I'm not mistaken. The Ozolith nasty, really, really powerful and just crazy ways to win the game and close it out. This was a quicker one for today. I do appreciate you guys tuning in, but man, what cards would you use with this new artifact? How are you going to use and abuse it? Let me hear. Maybe there's something I didn't talk about. I'm sure there's a lot of card synergy I haven't talked about, but this is really exciting. Really, really cool card. Most hype. I was able to make almost half a video on this thing because it's that good. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Check out the other videos. Appreciate you tuning in. Definitely hit the like button if you really enjoyed this video. By all means, share it with someone. And skadoosh yourself. We'll see ya.